Tense time for Year 12 students. Well, it's a tense last couple of years. VCE kicking off in Year 11, all the build-up to exams, which a lot of them will start to sit in the coming weeks. Obviously, as Gail mentioned in the news, the languages are kicking off, and then there's some music and other arts subjects kicking off as well. But do VCE results really matter? I went through Year 12, and I think what I studied and went to university for wasn't radio broadcasting, which I'm doing right now, which is pretty cool and fun. But do they really matter? Does it stop you doing what you really want in life? We always hear that people change careers 6 or 7 times. Sue Ellson, career expert, has joined us on the line. Good afternoon, Sue.
Hi, Jimmy. How's it going?
Now, of course, you've got to study hard and get your Year 12 and do well and finish what you started. But does the results really matter in the long run?
Well, I guess it really depends on what you want to get into. So if you want to get into the top universities, there will be ATAR requirements and you have to get a certain standard of results. But like you, my career is not hit where I first started my formal training after school. And most employers, what they're looking for is somebody who can turn up and actually do some work. So whether you've had the formal qualifications or not, that's still what employers are looking for. And a lot of skills you can learn either on the job or through short courses or extra vocational stuff as well.
Just you started on it just before, the ATAR results. Now, let's just pick a career that needs a high ATAR result. If you fall short or you didn't get what you expected, there are still ways to get into that course, isn't there?
Well, if you miss out on your first preference, there is one round of changes that you can do. So you might be able to change preference and start somewhere else. Also, it might not be at the first university you would have liked to have gone to, but you might be able to start somewhere else. And I know a student who started at Monash and then moved to La Trobe. And, these options are all possible. And also, sometimes there's been X factors, and we all know that a lot of students who are now in Year 12 have had a lot of remote learning and that has impacted their ability, but they could just be late bloomers or develop their skills a little bit later in their studying journey and find that perhaps they prefer the university environment and then they do better there than the school environment. So, there's many different options available.
Continuing on the study pathway, and I hate using these terms, pre-COVID and post-COVID, but there was university and TAFE and education providers everywhere. Has that shrunk those opportunities?
I don't believe it has shrunk the opportunities. I guess it's just changed and the market has changed. There's some people calling for regulation in relation to the overseas students who are apparently enrolled in these sort of courses that they never intend to study. So, the dynamic has changed. So if it was me looking at courses either as the student or the parent providing the funding for the student, then I would definitely want to make sure it's with a reputable organisation, that they've got good results and that it's not just a piece of paper that appears not to be genuine, because obviously employers are going to look at where you studied. If it's something they recognise, they're probably going to feel a lot more comfortable with that than if it's somewhere that they don't recognise. And I had a friend who did a whole bunch of online short courses. He wanted to go from being a data programmer to a data scientist. And he just did a whole bunch of online short courses and found that was more relevant than going back to uni. So, there's lots of different options for people now. You
touched on it before, employers looking for someone who just shows up. So do the scores matter, or is it the subjects that you undertake matter more than most?
Well, a recruiter or a decision maker is going to look at the whole picture. So let's say you're a straight A student, but you didn't.
Of course I am. Yeah, of course I am.
You were hopeless, at emotional intelligence, and you couldn't get on with the other employees. I mean, that's not going to go down well. So when I was doing recruitment for Westpac, we actually looked at the whole picture of the applicant. So were they involved in team sports or individual sports? Did they volunteer in the community? What general results they had? And believe it or not, we were only looking for people who had passed their courses. They didn't have to be high distinctions and at that top level. So when you record your subjects that you've completed on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile, you don't actually have to mention the grades. So it's definitely not the number one factor. It might help in some situations. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, I guess you'd want somebody who was top of the class. But a lot of other roles, you wouldn't necessarily need the geography skills, for instance. Yeah.
Controversial topic, the one I'm going to ask you about next. Does the school matter? Does the tie actually matter?
Well, there is an expression that, yes, in Melbourne it does, and there is a bit of an old school boys network. And although I'm originally from Adelaide, I've heard that back in the day, you wouldn't get into a law firm unless you went to a particular school. I don't know what those schools were, so I can't tell you which ones to choose.
Well avoided, Sue.
Thank you. But I just think that at the end of the day, it's hard work, it's showing up, it's being proactive, it's asking the question. And what some students find is they've been so focused on doing the study that they're not really thinking about their careers and building networks and developing job search skills. So as soon as you've finished your exams, go back to the careers person at the school and get some extra help and say, what else can I do? And even when you get the results, ask them what to do. And I spoke to a careers advisor just this morning, and she suggested if you really bomb out, why don't you just take a gap year, have some time off, do a couple of short courses and just get your mojo back. And, you know, if it's just you're really worried about the exams right now, I'll use a footy metaphor. It's one exam at a time, just like one game at a time, and that should help as well. VCAL's
been a great thing put into our schooling system. Of course, not every kid is books inclined, if you will. They don't want to be the brain surgeon. They're more practical. They love the trades and different things like that. In saying that, does doing well in Year 12 still help if you want to be a tradie?
Well, I know a tradie who started their apprenticeship at 26, which is quite unheard of because normally businesses want a younger person because they can pay them lower rates. So again, I think it's going to depend on your attitude. So what this particular person did is they went out and got experience in the firm at a lower level job, and then they ended up getting their apprenticeship. So it's always horses for courses and people you know and who you can get referred, because this person always wanted to be an electrician and never expected that would actually happen. But this person was actually nominated by a colleague for an electrical apprenticeship because they were so good on the job and really committed to it. So I really believe that if you show a strong work ethic, those opportunities are possible. And if you look at the shortage of tradespeople that are out there at the moment, I imagine the industry would be calling for people. And what tends to happen in those situations is sometimes the rules, in inverted commas, are adjusted to attract more candidates. The bottom line, I'd say, is never.
So 17 and 18-year-olds don't like normally hearing advice from people my age or grandparents as well, because we're just not cool and we don't know anything and they know everything, of course.
Of course.
Of course. But what sort of advice, people listening are in the car or there's some grandparents at home and they go around and see their grandkids, what sort of advice should they be giving them this time of year?
Asking them how they can help. Is there anything they would like information on? Would you like me to share stories? You've got to let the person ask the question, and then they want to hear the answer. And I've had this experience being a parent, and I went on a walk with a really good friend of mine of a similar age with my daughter. And when my friend said something which was exactly the same as what I had said, my daughter thought, that's fantastic, yet didn't hear it when I'd said it. So, increasing your circle of friends and talking to people and anyone you admire. So whether that's your grandparent or not your grandparent, maybe it's a mate from the footy team or the soccer club or somewhere else, you might find that there's someone that you can talk to. Just ask a lot of questions. A bit like when you get a quote for a tradesperson, you should always speak to at least 3 people. Don't just speak to one.
133 693. Do we put too much pressure on young people to get a good result? So what happens if they bomb? Like they just come out and they go, I think I only spelled my name correctly. The questions weren't what I studied. It was, I think I studied the wrong book. It was volume 2, not volume 1. What do we do?
Well, first of all, don't do a post-mortem on that particular exam, because it could just be that one and it could just be, the planets did not align on that particular day. So just, oh, well, so be it. And then focus on the next exam. But as I mentioned before, if you bomb out on the whole lot, then go back to the school, speak to the careers advisor, get some extra help. You might want to do a school-based apprenticeship so that you can continue studying in that environment. You might want to leave it and just have a job for a couple of years. I remember somebody else I knew their father was a stockbroker, very well qualified and very, very capable, and the son had gone to a very prestigious private school, and at the end of it decided he wanted to mow lawns. And this parent was very understanding and said, okay. And then, believe it or not, 12 months later, after, mowing lawns, they ended up going to uni and became a financial whiz in the end. So there's always options, and everything passes at some point in time. I didn't start my degree until I was 26 after I'd wasted 8 subjects of a business certificate in banking at a TAFE. So, all of us have a story to share. And just show up, do some hard work, and you'll get there.
So while I've got you here, if you jumped on LinkedIn or you did the old school way, you opened up the newspaper to the classifieds, you read a lot of the requirements for jobs going forward, and you go through them and you go, I only tick 1 box, I only tick 3 boxes. It seems like the perfect candidate would probably go for a job that doesn't suit that exactly what they're asking for. Yep. So what sort of things are a key factor that you just go, you know what, I only need 2 to 3 things? What sort of advice would you give people who are just unsure on what they want to do and they're just sort of studying or working out what they want to do?
Yeah, okay. So you only need 60% competency on any list. And obviously that list of preferred skills is what they'd prefer, but I love organisations that look at an open hiring policy and they just look at, hang on a minute, what is it we actually need? And the Body Shop were doing this, where they said for the Christmas rush before the end of the year, we need somebody who can lift this weight, turn up for these hours, blah, blah, blah. And it was basically first in, best dressed if you have those 4 things. So that's one way to sort of get in somewhere and then get referrals onto something else. But I think that most employers, as I said before, they want someone who's prepared to do the work, and if they can get that happening, that's going to make a huge difference.
No, thanks for that, Sue, and you better take that call because no doubt that's probably a VCE student who's just gone, I need some more of that advice in person. So go take that call, Sue. Thanks for your time. Sue Ellson, career expert. Sam's given us